Abhishek, NKR, these guys class, and I think they really raise the ceiling of what's possible in T20 batting. They can, score 130 odd balls. They're the type of players we deliberately look for come auction time. It talks about the runs, but there's a lot of experience in that bowling lineup, which, as a captain, I know how important that is. Look, started out with pretty much as well as we could have played, which is great for a new squad, and then probably haven't had the luck you sometimes hope for. We've kind of would like to have more wins, but really happy with how the group's going. Everyone's really positive, still a long way in the tournament. Look, I think most of our players are quite aggressive. I think in that first game where we got 280 odd, the thing that stood out to me was it wasn't reckless, it's calculated aggression. So I think we're lucky that we've got such strength that it's never just blind swinging. Our guys are they're well suited to striking at close to 200. So that's what we always encourage. Potentially, I think we're not gonna have a day probably where everyone's gonna score runs. But we feel like with that batting lineup, all it takes is one, maybe two guys to come off, and that can be match winning for us. They're all match winners. So I know I'd be worried coming up against that batting lineup because on their day they can, score 130 odd balls. I hadn't seen a lot of etiquette coming into this season. Really impressed in the warm-up matches and around training. I think it's that youthfulness that, in some ways, that naivety just to go out and just, no matter the game situation, just try and hit sixes, and that's what he's done. Takes the spin on. It's just that freedom that he's brought to his game, and the challenge is once he plays more, maintaining that freedom. I mean, hard to say. He's only played a few games, so he's been really impressive. See how he goes, but he's tracking beautifully. First of all, trying to get to know them, what they look like at their best. I think they're similar players. They're both quite aggressive. They like taking the game on. They've fitted in really well. They're the type of players we deliberately look for come auction time, and for them it's just keep playing to your strengths, making sure they know that we're going to keep backing them in, and it's not going to work every time, but that's okay. I believe so. Last year obviously everyone talks about the runs, but there's a lot of experience in that bowling lineup, which as a captain I know how important that is. Last year it was Natarajan and Bhuvi and JD, these kind of guys that I could lean on. This year it's much the same. Harshal, Shami, JD's here again. It's Zampa. It's keeping a cool head when the ball's flying around is really important. Maintaining that confidence throughout a season as well comes with experience. So I feel like we're well placed. I think it's probably more credit to our batting group from last year. Abhishek, NKR, these guys class, and I think they really raise the ceiling of what's possible in T20 batting. The wickets are obviously good. You got an extra impact player, but they showed that 10 and over, you should be able to try and chase that more often than not if you have a strong batting line at those conditions. So. My job and Dan Vittoria's job is to try and encourage them to be at their best, and I think they've shown that they've surprised everyone, maybe themselves included, just how good their best is.